Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people I've connected with in the entertainment industry over the years, and today I'm very pleased to have with me Ronnie Dog Robson. Welcome to the show, Ronnie.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tommy.
It is my pleasure. So, you are professionally a session and touring artist,
Mhm.
primarily on bass, and you've
Correct.
you've worked with some really top shelf players over the years. From what I understand, you've worked with everybody from members of Ozzy and Sabbath to Whitesnake. God, oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah.
guess he was part of the Hollywood Monsters. Is that right?
Yeah, we did Drop Dead. Drop Dead, That's Who from Gato on the last Hollywood Monsters album. Some great players on that one. Tommy Denander as well, who's written, worked with Alice Cooper and a bunch of other great people. And it was fun to do that song because it was always one of my favorite Gato songs. And then have Greg come in to do it was fantastic with Steph Hahn on vocals. So yeah, man.
Very cool. Now, I want to go back to the beginning with you. You started out on piano, taking
hmm
classical piano when you were just a kid, like 7 years old.
Yeah, 6, 7. Yeah, World Conservatory of Music. I come from a background where um, music was everything in our household. And excuse me, and my mom wanted me to learn an instrument, and piano was a big thing in our house. We had a piano in our house, of course. So she got me doing that as well as my sister. And we would I'd be, lessons every week, and she'd make me practice every day, and different scales, and I learned, different songs from Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, all of them, and then theory with that went with that as well. So yeah, I started out with piano. I still tinker every once in a while.
So you're a
Yeah,
prime example of what I call a consummate musician because you moved from classical piano to guitar a few
right.
years later. And
Yeah,
now all these years later, your rep is as a rock solid bass player.
right.
So um I was never that guy. I ended up learning keyboards much later, but
Mhm.
it's interesting to me that you had the support at home as well
Yeah,
when you were a
I
kid.
did.
Yeah.
I did. And when I wanted to switch to guitar, I was listening to Sweet and Nazareth and Zeppelin and all these great bands, Jethro Tull. And I wanted to switch. And it wasn't, 2 weeks later, next thing you know, acoustic guitar in the house, and I'm going for lessons for that as well. So just to learn the basic, fundamentals of guitar. And that didn't last very long. I picked things up pretty quick, and I was pretty good with my ear. So as soon as I started to learn chords, like basic chords and then bar chords, bang, on the ground running from there. So yeah.
Cool, cool. Now you are not just a straight ahead four string bassist. Um you're more versatile than that, and you're one of the few bass players that's on record for using effects as well. So,
Yeah.
um, who are some of your major influences on bass?
Major influences on bass for me, probably John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin as the root of everything. Rock, blues, he got into everything. John Entwistle, of course, more of a out there in your face player. Chris Squire from Yes, loved him. Geddy Lee, of course. Geddy's like, can't touch Geddy. Um, and there's like a few others down the road. Flea, I love later on. It was, kind of got into what he was doing, not so much on the slap thing, but how he would construct a song, how he would write his notes into things. That's where he really got me, definitely. But I think John Paul Jones has to be my favorite. Absolutely. And
No,
favorite musician as well. Favorite bass player slash musician.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, John Paul Jones was a major influence on many players, that's for sure, as
Yeah.
were all the other guys that you mentioned. Now, from what I understand, now you went to the Humber School of Business, which strikes me odd because I know a lot of guys who went there for the music program, but
Yeah.
when you were still in school, you were working part-time in a recording studio, is
Oh,
that right?
oh yeah. I was working in a recording studio and I was working in two restaurants as a sous chef. So it was like all part-time, but I was putting in more than full-time hours at that point. And I left the house young. I left really young. I left at 15 years old.
Mm.
Yeah.
Much to your
So
mother's chagrin, I'm sure.
no, yeah, and my dad's, yeah. But it's one thing that I just, it's one of these things where I had to do, free spirit and bang, I'm out. So, it's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day. My dad had to sign my lease for me because, I was below 18.
Right.
I couldn't, but
Yeah.
he saw the money in the bank. He saw everything. He saw that I was working. And he went, okay, if this is what you want to do, you can do it. So I did it. So yeah, but the recording studio was one of my favorite things. Then I started working for another recording studio part-time on Sundays because they wanted to give their engineers, a day or two off per week. So I started working on another one. So, with that, I met all kinds of artists, all kinds of great artists back then. Um, and, from there I was hooked. I knew what I wanted to do, but I also wanted to further myself. So basically, that's where I got the business degree. And because my mom and dad said, look, if you're not going to go to college, you're not going to go to university, you got to do something. And my dad says, get your business degree. So I went, got it. So that's what I did.
Well,
You
that's the
know,
one thing that a lot, I'm going to say the majority of top shelf players are lacking is the business acumen. So
mm,
that's the difference between living in a one bedroom apartment in somebody's basement
right.
and having a comfortable lifestyle. Um,
Yeah.
it's I've always said that I love the music. I
Right.
never enjoyed the business part of the music business.
No.
You
And I
know,
still don't.
yeah,
I still don't, Tommy. No. It's like I rather just go in, do my thing, bang, bang, out, you
yeah.
know? So,
But I think having a
because
basic understanding of how business works has got to be a major bonus. I have
it,
a day business that allows me to have the freedom to do what I want with my music.
right.
As much as I'm not concerned about the business part of the music, having
Yeah,
another business gives me that freedom.
exactly. Exactly. And you know what? I think I was 23, Tommy, where I was having lunch over at my grandmother's house and they had a councilor, a city of Toronto councilor there. And I think he had a kind of a thing for my grandmother. My grandmother was a beautiful girl. And we were talking and saying, I do this, I'm this and this. And he said to me, he goes, would you ever consider working for the city of Toronto? And I said, you know what? I would consider it most definitely, good money, good benefits, early retirement, this, that, and the other. So I think it was less than 2 weeks later, I started with the city of Toronto. And I did 33 years for the city of Toronto. I retired when I was 55. But within that time, I was always into music projects and film projects and things like that part time. So, I never really left that end of things, but I kind of moved forward with the city of Toronto because it was the safest thing that I can do. And a lot of these bands that these older Canadian bands, I was, talking to them about business, talking to them about what they were doing, and they would get like a salary for working, and that salary wasn't over the top even back then. Um, so that's I was really lucky that I took that route going into the city of Toronto because if not, I'd probably still be working to this day and probably less music and more work and more family and everything else. So, but yeah, man, I'm
Yeah,
happy. And I'm happy now because I can do what I want when I want to do it with who I want to do it.
right.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, speaking of doing what you want with who you want to do it,
mhm,
Hollywood Monsters, that's a pretty big deal. I mean,
yeah.
the names of the people that are involved with that, I mean,
Hmm.
good grief. How did that happen?
Well, it's funny. Stefan, that's his baby, Hollywood Monsters. Excuse me. And um, we started talking on the internet in regards to something completely different, something else. And we did a couple of songs together, a couple David Bowie songs. And Sasha Tukach was on drums from Platinum Blonde, ex-Platinum Blonde drummer, which was great because I always wanted to work with Sasha, and I got the chance. And then it was probably about a month or, 5 weeks after, Steph said to me, he says, man, I really don't know what I want to do next. So I said, well, why don't you do another Hollywood Monsters album, like number 3. So I said, you got great people on the first 2. I can get some great people in on the 3rd. Like, let's do it. Let's do some covers. You've got some originals. Let's get it together. So he, immediately said yes. So I said, okay, let's plan for the next album. And it took probably a little less than a year for us to get everything, all the songs together, and to get all the players together and record and get other people together for production and things like that. Set a video, do, just work on business with that and how we're going to release it and, when we're going to release it and things like that. And it worked out really well. It was one of the best things that I ever done in my life was join Steph on that, because it just opened up more doors for me as well. More people, like my backyard was like this. Now it was huge.
Yeah.
After that.
I mean, the fact that you've got people like Vinnie Appice drumming on some of this stuff, and Danko Jones singing.
Yeah.
This is no joke. This is a serious project, man.
Oh yeah.
Now you've got a promo video for the latest Hollywood Monsters release. I think what we should do is take a minute now and press play on that and let the people see it.
Sure. You know what? This one's called Numb. It is probably one of my favorite Hollywood Monsters tunes, period. And it's great. So you roll it, everyone enjoy.
When the feeling's gone, delusion's such a nice place to be. When nothing is real and nothing really matters, come on, sink a detective into me, 'cause I'm already numb. You're planting flowers in concrete when you're playing with my soul, saying what makes everything wrong. But the pain will happen.
Wow, that's great, man. This is really this is what the business is all about. There's some really good stuff. And um, are there hard copies available of the latest project?
Yeah, we have it on. There's two. Sorry, off the top of my head, I remember Bicky. There's Japanese import for Thriving on Chaos, that album, and there's one out of Brazil. And Fred Mika's going to kill me. I'm gonna point it out to him. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you go to ronnierobson.com and hit the monsters link, it shows where you can get them from there,
Very
and
cool.
samples, and you can get them online through on my website as well.
Cool. Now, in
Yeah.
my notes, I've got that you've played with was it Michael Schenker or somebody from his band that you've played
Uh,
with?
yeah, you know what? I can't remember who the heck it was. It was shoot. Don Airy.
Oh,
No,
okay. Don
no, wait a
Airy was
minute.
also
Maybe it was
keyboardist for.
Don Airy. I'm not too sure. And Don Airy came on this album, and I it was from a tune called "A Scream Looking for a Mouth," and I was surprised by that he was there. But I think it was Don Airy that I referred to for Michael Schenker.
Okay, and he was also
Yeah,
with Deep Purple for a while. Uh,
yeah, he was
so
great
yeah,
player,
no
a nice
doubt.
guy too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And he gets
yeah.
around. I know other artists that he's worked with as well.
Oh, he does. And it was funny because I was doing there was a guitar solo, and I thought, a little segue into the guitar solo, and I thought, you know what, I'm not just going to hold a bass line. So I hooked up my wah wah pedal, and I held the note but let it phase through the wah wah, and then the guitar solo started. So I said to Steph, I go, how do you like that? That's good. He goes, yeah, I like it, man. That's really, really good. So about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days later, um, I get the tune back, and it was Don Airy on B3, Hammond with a wah wah pedal. So my wah wah went in, and he carried it on, and I was just like beside myself. I was like, wow, you know,
Yeah, that's some.
yeah, it was a surprise to me, and I loved having it on the album, and there was a lot of other surprises too. We would surprise each other, Steph and I, but the musicianship on that album was amazing, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, and you should be. It's funny the little tricks that happen in the studio. I was just thinking when you mentioned wah wah,
Yeah.
I recorded a song a few years ago in the studio, and the engineer was there with me. And little did I know he had me plugged into a Morley wah.
Oh,
So I'm playing the solo, and he's operating it with his hands.
and you didn't even know.
I knew when he was doing it, but I didn't know
Right.
that it was going to happen. So it
Right.
inspired a totally different take on the solo. Yeah,
See?
yeah.
See?
So
And sometimes it takes like outside influence to say, hey, either just do it, or make a mention of it. Hey, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do this.
yeah,
And that's one thing about remote recording is communication is key. I can play a bass track and send it off, but I always say, if you're not happy with this, I always record in sections. Like I'll
hmm
record verses, I'll record choruses, I'll record bridges or whatever separately. So if they want something changed, I can change it like that. So, but just because you've done it once doesn't mean you're going to be not doing it again. And that's the way it should be. Definitely.
yeah, absolutely. And when we can strive for perfection, but what is perfection, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's really funny because people send me stuff, and stuff that they've done, and they ask me, what would you do differently? And I say, don't make it sound so perfect. It sounds inhuman, especially these metal and thrash guys now. It's just like, bang, 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 and that's it. There's no deviation. There's no anything. There's no holding a note. There's no, you know what I mean? It's like too mechanical for me, and that drives me crazy.
I
It
get it,
really does.
and it's a style, and
Yeah.
there's definitely there are people that appreciate that, but
Yep.
I've had this conversation with a lot of legacy artists. There's a lot of people who you see these memes, I might be old, but I grew up with all the best music. Well, it was the
Yeah,
best music for us, you
yeah,
know, and there's a whole new generation and there's another one coming after that,
there
and
is.
so music is the doctor. It's a matter of what doctor you choose and how
Yep.
often you visit for checkup, right?
Yeah, no,
Uh,
exactly. Exactly. But you know what? I always say play it like you would live. Like as you walk out on the stage and you would, just 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the way to do it, man. Because it shows life, it shows personality. And that's the only thing that I'm saying with it is sometimes it lacks that
right.
lacks that personality. It's just, as I said, it's too mechanical.
Yeah,
It
no, I
drives me
get that.
crazy.
I
Yeah.
get that.
Like I understand, like rhythm section, yeah, put it tighter than an otter's butt, great. But rest of it, no, man. Even vocals are like it's like flatlining.
The last single I recorded while I was in the vocal booth, on the spur of the moment, decided to sing this song differently than I had over the course of 2 years that I was preparing to record it.
Right,
And so I listened to the vocal in my truck later, and I went, "Oh my
right.
God, I actually sang sharp."
Yeah.
So, so I said to the engineer, "We're gonna have to fix this." And that
Yeah,
was my first and hopefully maybe the only experience I've had with auto tune, but.
yeah,
Um, sometimes in the heat of the moment, things happen and it's going to affect it positively or negatively. Now, not only are you a successful player, but you're branching out into culinary arts on a more professional level. Tell me about that.
yeah. I decided I'm watching all these online cooking shows and all these like culinary based shows where guys are doing uh reviews at restaurants and this, that, and the other. And they're using other people's music all the time. They're using like how they're getting away with it, I don't know. And I thought to myself, my wife said to me, you should do one. And a few other friends says, you should do one too. And I thought, you know what, I could play all the instruments, write the songs for it, whether it be 35, 40, 45, 50 seconds long, but I can do that all day and every day. And film, I just redid my kitchen, and not because of that, because we wanted to redo our kitchen, but it's still in development. It's called Sioux Rock City, and Food Music Life. So I'll be doing, everything from in the kitchen, little tips, tricks, sauces, full course meals, to going out to different restaurants, getting in their kitchen, doing all kinds of things. So it's going to be a little more interesting. Like it's not going to be, one trick pony where I'm sitting in my kitchen doing recipes for everyone. I said little tips and tricks for restaurant owners, front of house staff, things like that. So
Very
it's going to be
cool.
a little more broad
Very cool.
with a great soundtrack.
Yeah. So, back to the music for a minute,
Sure.
Ronnie. What's next for you?
Right now, I'm working on a project starting up. I've been sitting on a few tunes for the last say year and a half. I got some great players, and I'm going to do basically what I did with the Hollywood Monsters, but it's all going to be this guy. Said I have a guitar player and a great drummer going to be joining me on this. I can't mention any names right now. And same thing, I'm gonna have guest musicians and guest artists to do it. We'll release something like maybe one per month, and then the album after a year or something like that. So between the cooking show and this, that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be happy doing it, definitely, because I got some great people already into it, and I'm gonna get some great people into it as well farther down the road. And not only that, great musicians, but great production people as well. So, and I've got a phone call actually this afternoon. I have to do one of the best mixing engineers that I know. Because sometimes I want to just drop things off to other people. I want to say, look, I've got emotional attachment to this one. You take over. So for
Yeah,
mixing and
it's
masterings.
it's nice to have that objective ear, and
Yeah,
I know that as musicians, we'd all love to think that everything we do is golden, But I said to my wife the other day after my Canada Day show, so,
Yeah.
am I really a good front man or am I just goofy up there? She's, no, no, you're really a good front. But we don't always have absolute confidence until somebody
No.
uh, is on the outside looking in and says, you know what, Ronnie, you're right. That bass line is really solid. Why don't we
Yep.
try this, and see
Yep.
how that works with it? Or maybe add
No,
a second
exactly.
bass line, or
Oh
whatever.
yeah. Or maybe just guitar notes with the bass line. I've done that before too, and it just, man, made things jump.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who used to do that with violin and cello. I think it was Henry Mancini, or I'm not sure, but he used to double up on his bottom end.
Okay.
And I kind of caught that a few years ago, and I did it on a few songs. The next thing you know, like I'm playing 6-string guitar on it, but I'm playing, just notes, and bang, it just lifted it right up. So there's always little tips and tricks that we do, but it's nice to have other ears as well to say
Absolutely.
yes and no, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of George Martin and the opening chord to Hard Day's Night,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and the guitar solo was not just a guitar solo because George is playing piano right along with it.
Right.
And that's why so many guitar players are just strangling themselves trying to figure out how do I get that sound? Well, you can't.
Yeah. You can't. You can't unless you know, and then
You have your piano
make,
player play it with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if not, then you guess what? Your vocalist has learned how to play piano.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Not
Uh,
that note, this note. Middle C. Yeah.
Back to the bass guitar for a minute.
Sure.
Flat wound or round wound?
Uh on all of my basses except for my fretless is round wound. And I can't remember the gauge off the top of my head. 40, usually 45 to I say 95 or 105. I can't remember.
Okay.
I get packages of strings in. They're the same ones from D'Addario, and I just rip them open and change. I'm not really looking at things, but I think it's 45 to 90. Yeah, 105, 45 to 105. And then on 5-string, I think I go up to 115 or 120.
Okay.
So, yeah, keep
Cool.
that a little bit lighter on my fifth on my B string or whatever D or whatever I tune it to. Yeah.
You can see some of the guitars behind me here.
Yeah.
As of last week I had on my three main electric guitars, I had three different gauges of strings.
Oh yeah.
I had turned my Ibanez into somewhat of a baritone guitar.
Right.
Yeah, and my low E was a 56, I believe.
Holy cow.
And it's funny because I actually thought I'd broken one of the locking tuner adjusters.
Yeah.
And it turns out when I went back to the medium gauge that
Right.
the tuner wasn't broken. It was just for people that don't know, locking tuners usually have like an enclosure that tightens
Right.
when you turn the dial. And
Yep.
so that string was too big.
Ah,
So it wouldn't lock because it just
right.
couldn't close on it. Right. But
Wow.
that
Yeah, you
said,
know what? I got to experiment with strings too on my 6th. I got a Fender Acoustic Sonic, which is an electric guitar, acoustic guitar, hybrid kind of deal. And I want the more so for the acoustic tones. But if I want to go and play a David Gilmour solo, I need a lighter gauge. So I'm still experimenting. I've changed my strings twice. So hopefully I think I got it figured out now where I'm going to go. But I wanted that guitar for the studio, just for hybrid. So I'm not buying, like, I don't have guitars 6 strings like you I do right now because I've already got a lot of basses. So
yeah. Well, we could get in a lot of trouble if we talked about all the guitars we have and all the ones that we want.
yeah.
Listen, Ronnie, I don't want to take up your whole day. I
Sure.
know you've got lots of stuff on the go. I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me today. And until next time, cheers.
Yeah. Thanks, Tommy. And thank you for having me. Enjoy, everyone.
My pleasure. Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. And hey, here's some news. We've just recently joined forces with 519 magazine, so you can check out my interviews there as well. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn, all rights reserved. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to help us keep it going, why don't you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, cheers.